Okay, so we are live, and it's so good to see you, Nwokore Albert. I think that's Dr. Nwokore. I think that should be yourself. Let me know if that's you. It's so good to see you. All right. I'm still going to wait for more people to join us
Yeah, no worries.
for sec or so. I forgot to say that I love your hairstyle. Looks like someone that just came back from space.
Thank you. It's just a thing I do with the like it's just a thing I do once.
Okay. Let me tell them in the WhatsApp group that we are live. As a matter of fact, I'm supposed to be in class right now, but I'm going to have to connect with my classmates and tell them to share with me what I missed. So let me let
Okay,
them know in the WhatsApp group that we're about to start.
great.
We are waiting for you guys. Please, can you join the call online? Thank you very much. Favor, thanks. Ibrahim, thanks. See you guys online, please. Okay, I think we're live on Facebook. I'm just checking this out on Facebook. I've had to share that. I don't know. Nelly, are you on Facebook? I didn't get to check.
Yeah, I'm on
Uh,
Facebook. Do you want me to share it on Facebook Live?
yeah, I
Or
mean, you
yeah.
can go to Dahel Consultants and Techies. If you check, you'll see we are live, and you can share it.
I'm thinking how like I should log in my Facebook and then
No, you don't need to log in here. Like, just go to your Facebook page
yeah, I'm
and
on my
search for the Dahel Consultants and Techies,
okay.
and then you'll see that we are live there.
Yeah, I just searched.
You can also check LinkedIn out.
Yeah, so what
LinkedIn, we also,
what do I do? I see that you're live, but I'm not quite sure.
yeah, you could share it to your page or something. So I'm going to tag you on LinkedIn. So please, if you are just joining, can you drop like hello, like let us know that you are not a robot. You are listening to us from planet Earth. Thank you so much for your patience, and I really appreciate everyone. Okay, Timothy, good to see you. Timothy said hello. Wait again, thank you. Wait again, said hello. Um, World Career, thank you so much. Saying hello as well. I want to see more people. Please share this on your social media handles, on your WhatsApp status. This is a very interesting conversation. I think it's going to be an interesting conversation, actually. Because I feel like Nelly is a one in a million wonderful lady. And most of us were not born to see that certain things are possible until we dare to experience those possibilities much later in life. All right, so I think we should start. If you're done with the introduction, I want to welcome everyone here. Welcome those who are live with us, and I appreciate you for taking the time. We deeply apologize for the delay in starting this program. We are like 30 minutes or so later. Myself and Nelly have been trying to figure out what in heaven's hell is a tech messing up with us this way, but we're happy to be here. And space technology has always been a fascination for me. There is a Latin word, ad astra, to the stars. And most times when you look at the stars, one would think that it is an astoundingly exciting phenomenon to be close to maybe a different life, a different existence, something really magnanimous and beautiful. And so sometimes, if you just want to think about your life, just look at the heavens. Maybe in one cool evening, there's something it does to you. But even more so, we see that humankind has dared to get to the length of innovation, taking our evolution to the next level by daring to reach the stars. We've been able to get the closest we've been able to get to the cosmos, the planets. We have names of different stars, named sometimes according to by the scientists or the cosmologists or whatever physicist there was at the time. And today we have audaciousness shown in companies like SpaceX and the company led by Amazon. I heard they had a successful launch recently. And then we have the Nigerian Space Agency, of course. We have South Africa, we have other countries. By the way, I attended one of the recent sessions you had where the guy was talking about South African airspace. I attended that very webinar, and it was really enlightening. And I saw you wrote on your WhatsApp status that and today's webinar was crazy, like something like that. And I appreciate what you've been doing in trying to bridge the gap in people knowing what is happening in space technology and how they can get it on board. And you've taken it a notch by even talking about geopolitics
Yeah.
between Africa and Europe in terms of space exploration and things related to that. The rest of the conversation really would just be you telling us what in heaven's name is really possible in space technology. And I really look forward to it as a person. The opportunity is there in too. I look forward to knowing what is possible. Is it NASA really far from us as we thought? Is it possible that someone in Nigeria can really have a close connection with space technology? It is a very high level technology. It's not the type that you sit in your homes and you are pressing your phone or any of your device. It's life threatening. I tell you. I was watching a video of the space station, and I was like, these guys, should anything happen now, there's nothing like, hey, maybe you want to call your mom or your parents. You don't even, I don't think you have the time to call them, hey, mom, there's been an accident in the space station. I'm somewhere flying. I'll be landing on Earth anytime soon, that kind of thing. So it's a very risky job. That's why it is very, very important that we get to hear from you today. So thank you so much, like I said, everyone, and thank you especially Nelly for being here. We would love to start by getting to know what you do, who you are. Just introduce yourself. You are in the best place to do so, and I'll be so happy to listen as well.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Thank you so much, David. I'm very happy to be here. Hello, everyone. It's good to have you all here join us for this very interesting conversation. Um, I'm a space advocate. I do a lot of talking around the importance of space technologies for development in Africa, the importance of space technologies to inspire young people, to inspire children. So I do a lot of public awareness around space, outer space technology, space science, and astronomy as well. Apart from that, I'm currently a researcher, so I'm doing my PhD in politics at the University of Manchester. In order to carry out my passion in spreading space awareness, I get to work with organizations that are interested in young people. I work with public organizations like with the government institutions. Sometimes I work with private institutions and non-profit organizations as well to volunteer and just give my own contribution in ensuring that young people in Africa have access to capacity building opportunities in the space industry. And that's all from my end. The favorite part of my job and what I love most about working in the space industry are like the outreaches I do, where I go to schools, talk to young people about space and just see their eyes just bubble with excitement. I've not done a lot of that in a while, but my last outreach was in February, and it was really interesting to always talk about space technology to young children. Thank you so much. I'm very happy to be here and looking forward to the conversation. Hi, David, are you there?
Yes, I'm always with you.
Okay, good. Yeah.
Thanks so much for that really brief conversation. Now, the first question here is that your PhD research focuses on Africa and Europe space relationships, particularly
Yeah.
Earth observation.
Yeah. Yeah.
What motivated you to explore this niche? You could have explored other niche, but this particular one, what it motivated you to explore this? And what do you think are the key findings that you have uncovered so far?
Yeah, just to start on the last question, I haven't started my data, like full-time data gathering yet. I'm still working on my analytical and theoretical framework, because when you do research in social science, you're always doing it from maybe a certain theoretical or analytical framework. So that's what I've been currently doing, and my literature review as well. So I do have some preconceived notions, but I wouldn't call them findings yet because I have not gathered my data, which is what I'll start doing by the end of the year, hopefully. So I can't answer that last question. But in terms of my motivation, I think it's a lot of different reasons why I just ended up doing this PhD. But the first, I would say, is my entry point into the space industry. Everybody have a different ways they became very interested in space, or they started working in space. And for me, it really goes back to 6 years ago. I've always been interested in space, but in terms of like as a career or as something I do most of the time, it's just 6 years ago or so, in 2019, when I represented Africa in a space law competition at NASA headquarters in DC. And just representing Africa just gave me that very holistic idea of Africa in space. So it became a very something at the continental level. I was interested in Africa as an entity. It wasn't just about space technologies. It wasn't just about my country, or it wasn't just about a specific field of space, but it was about the continent. And I just became very interested in Africa in space. And then I did my master's in diplomacy and international relations. So I started looking at different international organizations in space. I started doing a lot of reading around diplomacy, and I found out that when it comes to international collaboration in the space industry, that Africa and Europe has the most elaborate and robust diplomatic relations, partnerships, and projects around space. And that's why I was like, okay, this is really good. I had other interests like space security. I did my bachelor's degree in space law, and my interest has always been outer space security, futuristic armed conflicts in space. So yes, I had that maybe idea, maybe this is good, but that's a very well researched area already, especially in the global north. Like looking at, people have looked a lot at China, US, Russia, what they are doing in space and space security. But when it comes to like Africa, there's not a lot of research about Africa in space from an academic point of view. There are a few dozen scholarly positions here and there, but nothing has been very, very detailed on Africa and geopolitics in space. So yes, I think that's why I was like, okay, this is a very good one. I read some policy brief. I spoke to a few of my colleagues and got a lot of their insights. What do you think about this project? And I thought it was very good. In 2021, I attended the Africa High Level Earth Observation Forum, Africa EU High Level Earth Observation Forum on Earth Observation. I was one of the young people that were invited to kind of like give our ideas on how young people can contribute to Africa EU Earth Observation and space. So that in experience, I was just like, okay, that's a good experience, and this is the gap in the literature. Let me go back and see maybe how I can just continue this from just a one-off, conversation I had 3 or 4 years ago into something more concrete. That's how I found myself doing this PhD.
I mean, it's very interesting to see that, hear rather, that you visited Washington, D.C. How was the experience like for you?
It was good. It was just that one time I've been to the US. Lucky me. I've not been able to go back ever since. But I think it was not just about the US. It wasn't about being at Washington DC. What took me primarily there was space. Was about the moods competition, the space law moods, and I wish I had more fun. I wish I wasn't too caught up in the moment. But I would say when I was there, all I thought about was winning the moods competition. Africa coming first, and just being at NASA just did something to me. Just seeing all the amazing work at NASA, I just told myself, this is what I want to do. It felt very nice. It felt like this is the industry I want to work in. So yes, I've forgotten a lot about DC already because we were there for maybe nearly 3 weeks, but I still remember a lot about the space part of the experience and being at NASA headquarters. It was great.
I am so jealous of you right now because out of all the places I visited in DC, NASA was the last
Was
place
it?
I thought
It's
I would.
something else. It's
Hmm.
good. It was really.
I was really close to, not close. I think I was in the same building where the Phase S aircraft that landed in the moon,
Oh,
in the museum. It's right there in the
the
museum,
Air and
and
Space Museum. Yeah,
yeah,
I,
at
I
the
was
Space
I was
Museum. Oh,
there.
you visited
Yeah,
the Space Museum.
yeah,
That's
I did
nice.
visit it.
I
Of
mean,
course, I was there.
that was the first time in my life I saw a massive engine. Like you could pack 1,000 of me into that engine. So
Yeah.
when people say that it's possible for you to actually uh, in like the spacecraft or the rocket is like a 20-story building or 15 or 10, I absolutely believe them because
Thank
that
you.
spacecraft was really, really massive. And for
Yeah.
every one of you listening, I think it's just okay, you know that it's very possible for you to be in that kind of space as well. But I would love to ask, in terms of the Africa-Europe space relations, in your view, what do you think are the primary challenges and opportunities in fostering a stronger space partnership between Africa and Europe? Because let's be honest with ourselves. There is a massive gap between what's happening in Africa and what's happening in Europe or in the rest of the Western world. What are those challenges and what are those opportunities that you envisage or you see?
Yeah, that's a really brilliant question, quite interesting, and goes directly to my research. And like I said, I'm still doing my literature review, still scoping. Whatever I'm going to say here is what has been said by industry, um, stakeholders, and other people in the field, as well as maybe my own personal experience. So one of the challenges that have been maybe identified would be the fact that space is very geopolitical, like we said. You cannot take Africa EU space cooperation outside the framework of Africa EU relations. So this means that whatever challenges general and broader Africa EU relations have is what would be seen in the space sector as well, in a way. We understand that space is unique. I want to think space is amazing and lovely and it's a very good field, but then it's still embedded within the nuances of politics and geopolitics. So stakeholders have argued from different perspectives, like projection of EU interest, like very, very low contribution from Africa as well. And, the general narrative is that we don't want this dependency framework. We don't want to be completely dependent on Europe, where we are more of like just receivers of technology. We want to be active partners. And I think over the years, the African EU Space Partnership has been working to meet that ideal of equal partners as well. The African Europe Space Partnership Program of 2025 was recently just signed a few weeks ago. So that's a very interesting development. And some of the issues and priorities, such as space commercialization, having a structured policy, it has been things that has been identified as the aspiration of this new partnership for 2025. So we've had industry observers argue that maybe EU's industry in itself, which doesn't really have a strong private sector, is maybe rubbing off on Africa. I think there was Joshua Falaiti that argued that. And Kwekusoma has also talked about Africa not just being passive recipients, but being active shapers. And same thing with a team of young has also argued about the need for us to look at the geopolitics in both blocks, not to interfere in space technology. So there are different challenges. I know I'm being very diplomatic in what I'm saying right now, but yes, there are different challenges. But I think the major thing is that the partnership is constantly evolving. From my observation, a lot has changed in the past 20 years, or more than since 2001. The EU has been supporting space projects in Africa, and a lot has changed over these years. And I think that's what my research is going to be about, just looking at what has changed, what has gotten better, what is still the same. And yeah, hopefully when I find out more, I'll be able to talk about more, confidently. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I acknowledge that those challenges really do, in fact, exist. I don't know if you can hear me.
Yes, I can.
So I am open to everyone listening to us. If you do have a question about space technology opportunities, and there are something you want our guests to talk to you today about, you can start dropping the comments or questions in the group while I continue with my questions, a question that represents you. So let's look at space advocacy and education in Africa. I see that you are the co-founder of Land Space Foundation. You've been really instrumental in astronomy education among young Africans, and you visited the African continent so many times to talk about this. Could you share some of the success stories or some of the success stories that you have or impactful moments from this initiative? We would love to know, has there been growth or not in your work and your impactful endeavors? And you've also emphasized the importance of space advocacy. This is another question, so you just respond to the two of them.
Yeah.
I would love to know what strategies you found most effective in raising awareness and interest in space science across the continent. Again, you can use your personal experience as someone who's worked in the Space Foundation before.
Oh
I think
yeah,
you're still working there, right?
yeah, that's a good one. That's a good question. For me, I don't know when it comes to strategies. I was talking to a colleague. Sometimes it's been like unguided passion. Sometimes I just do what works for me, as long as I have maybe an idea that I want to pass across, and I just, yeah, sometimes it doesn't work, sometimes it works. But just to share a bit of the success stories and the strategies and what we've been able to do at Lens Space Foundation. I think Lens Space Foundation has focused a lot on children in public schools and from backgrounds like public schools, basically, because we know that for private schools a lot of time they have opportunities. We've done some things in private schools as well. It's been a bit of a mix, but a lot of attention for public school. What we do is we use the everyday things that children are used to when it comes to extracurricular activities, like quiz competitions, like public speaking, like we've even done, I think, what's it called, a spelling bee before. That one was really fun. We've done a spelling bee as well, so we've tried out all these. What we do is sometimes we partner. Changing Lives initiative in Calabar has been very amazing. We've partnered with them a few times, so there will be an education program. What we do, we just insert space technology as one of the teams where one they can just talk about or read around about. Like when we did the spelling bee, we just came up with a lot of words around science, astronomy, space technology, and it would amaze you how incredible these children were. Same with the quiz competition. I think we've done an essay competition as well around topics of space. So we just normal academic events, but we give them its space and astronomy team, and we reach out to as it's a non-profit organization, so we have to get donations. So we reach out to organizations and individuals. Oh, we are organizing this, would you like to sponsor us, fund this, fund that? I think one of the hardest thing about running a non-profit in Nigeria is that it's incredibly hard to run a non-profit in Nigeria. We don't really have a very big non-profit culture in the country, and engaging with schools can be a big headache as well. Getting approval for students to attend events, it's a big headache. But we just tend to, I think the most important thing is being able to just navigate in terms of getting used to the school system. Like in Calabar, for instance, where we've done most of our projects, if you want to get public schools involved, if you need to get approval from SUBEB, get approval from SUBEB. If you need to get approval from Ministry of Education, so many times we've invited the Ministry of Education for like our events and for the things we do as well, just so that these public schools will be able to uh, attend them. Apart from this kind of events, we've done a national space law moot competition for undergraduate universities. We had a very good number of universities attend, more than 10, I believe, in Abuja, where we did the first Nigerian space law competition at the national level. We hosted this with the Nigeria Space Agency. So we were in Abuja, and you will see brilliant debate and arguments on space law by Nigerian undergraduates, which I think was a very interesting experience, just to work with the Nigeria Space Agency on that. And currently, we are working with the Nigeria Space Agency to send the first Nigerian astronaut to space. So we are very happy to be part of that mission with Sarah and Blue Origin. So we are just supporting, promoting it in any way we can, but we are fully involved in the process. During the signing of the MOU a few months back, President Dr. Anagi was there with one of our trustee board members, Augustine Shea, was in Abuja, where the Minister of Science and Technology was there, the director of the Space Agency was there. So we are working with them to see how we will send in first Nigerian to space very soon. So more details about our astronaut program is coming up, and we are very excited about that because what we primarily do is to say that space education has a way of inspiring people, and that's why I do space awareness. It's to me is one of the best ways to say there are no limits. You can do whatever you want to do. Yeah, so that is why I really love working. That part of my job is there as well. I do advocacy outside of Land Space Foundation, but I'll leave it at that. Yeah, thank you.
I seriously feel that with all this work you're doing, I no longer want to stay one side. I want to be part and parcel of it.
Absolutely. We need everybody. Oh, like what we used to say, space is for everybody, space is for all. Whatever you are doing, just keep doing what you're doing in whatever industry you are. What you can just do, especially when it comes to awareness, help us spread the word. Because the truth is, the space industry is expanding like never before. Countries are putting in so much money into space. America puts in billions, China billions, and they are training their young people to think about space in a particular way. Expansionism is a real thing. You know, planetary imperialism is a real thing. People want to go, they want to be on Mars, they want to live on Mars, and they're teaching them all this kind of like very broad mindset to think about the world, that we can be multi-planetary. And we are still teaching children whether or not Pluto is a planet. There's this huge gap between where people are and where we are as a continent. And things are so messy right now in terms of, we know that Africa, we've not had a concrete, industry. We are not very industrialized yet, right? So there's this huge technological gap. We acknowledge that it will be hard to catch up with the West, but it's not a competition. It might be a healthy one. But what we can definitely do is to talk to children, is to inspire them, to tell them that this is what is possible. People have, sent all of these rovers to outer space and everything. And whether or not we like it, in the next 100, 200 years, that is where the world is. That is where the world is heading to. So if Africa doesn't want to be left behind again when it comes to technology, and I wish we had time to talk about how space technology is just everything from GPS to mapping to, from finding your way around town to emergency services to logistics for transportation. Everything is satellite technology. And if we can't build these satellites by ourselves and launch them by ourselves, then we are in very big problem, because the whole world is becoming more and more space dependent. So we need indigenous capabilities in space, and that is why maybe we can start with children. I think that is my own way of looking at it. Yeah.
Yeah, and it took me 30 years of my life to actually get to go into a museum of space, see that this thing actually exists. It's all on TV. I can tell you that it's I don't know if I should say use the word shameful and not so good.
Yeah, yeah, it's not shameful. Even here, a lot of people don't pay. The truth is, when it comes to space, like what we have come to always discuss when we talk about space communication, is that not everybody will be interested in space. Not everybody will be fascinated with the idea. Not everybody will be,
Yeah, that's true.
like interested.
That's true.
Sometimes when I talk about space, people are like, maybe people in chop Gary first. Not everybody will be interested, and that's, but what we should do is try to get as much people that are interested. Like, you got the opportunity,
Yeah.
let everybody have that opportunity. Then if they are not interested in working in the industry or contributing, then it's fine. I'm not interested in the ocean, or people are there interested in marine biology, and I don't think and they think all those things are interesting, but I think like, what is it with the ocean? So it's same thing with space technology. We just want to get as much people like yourself that might be fascinated and interested in working in this sector. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's
Yeah.
look at international politics. I see that you have your master's in diplomacy and international relations,
Yeah.
and I'm really interested to know what your background has in terms of influence regarding your perspective on international politics of space. In your
Mm.
last webinar, one of those webinars I attended, The guy was from East Africa, and he was talking
Yeah.
about database or data about
Yeah.
where does Africa depend on generating
Yeah.
data and stuff
Data
like that. So
dependency. Yeah.
data, yeah, exactly. And with the increasing involvement of private entities in space exploration, look at what SpaceX is doing. How do
Yeah.
you basically also, this is the second question, how do you basically foresee the balance of power? I mean, you've mentioned this when it comes to political hegemony, or would I call it uh, in planetary hegemony, or if there's anything like that. We want to become the first
Yeah.
interplanetary species, but with that dream and ambition comes with power toggles here and there, in especially in the global space agency or global space governance. So let's talk about international politics or space, looking at these two questions.
Mm. Oh, okay. That's really interesting for me. Like I said, my first academic interest in space was actually conflict in outer space, where we basically look at how space is becoming more and more weaponized. Yes, we know that space technology is used for military purposes on Earth. The first time GPS was formally used was for precision bombing during the Saddam Hussein time in the late 90s. So we know that space is militarized on Earth. But the issue sometimes, what my first interest was, why is space becoming more militarized in space, which is we know as space weaponization? Hence, people start building satellites that can destroy another satellite in space, for example, ASAT weapons, counter space capabilities, like we call them. So that was my first academic interest, but it was from a legal point of view. So when I did my master's in diplomacy and international relations, I started looking more from politics, and I started learning about IR theories, and there are different paradigms. You might want to call them worldview or approaches when it comes to international politics and space governance. There are so many different approaches. There's not one approach, and I would like to say that for me, I've decided to take more of like I kind of an approach where you kind of like borrow an eclectic approach. I'll say borrow approaches from like different perspectives. It's not one perspective. It can be mixed. So yes, there are some people that see that international space governance is it's he that has the person that has the power, who has the power. That's a realist approach to it. How many satellites do you have? How many or military satellites do you have? And he that has the power is the person that has the hegemony in space and will be the one to set the new regime when it comes to like man's activities in outer space. And then we have to talk only about the big names like Russia, China, America, or in another order, America, China, Russia, and other countries. The EU is becoming very interested in space security. For example, Germany and the rest, and France, and you start calling all, but the big names will be America, Russia, China. So that realist approach will look at power, who has the power, who has the money, who has the most investment. But another approach will tell you that it's not that bad, actually, that there's a lot of cooperation going on in space, and maybe this obsession with space is just going to be the wild wild west, and we are going to have conflict in space, or there's no cooperation, there's no peace in space. That is just maybe an over exaggeration of the space race. Another approach will look at how institutions collaborate, and that institutions are able to collaborate despite the anarchy in the international system. This is known as maybe a neoliberal approach. And for example, you have mentioned the International Space Station, and you talked about how astronauts are there working. The International Space Station itself is a symbol of international cooperation, because Russia and the US might be having issues on Earth, EU and Russia having issues on Earth, but in the International Space Station, we see that astronauts from Russia, the EU, and the US are working together. So the martial institutions are actually collaborating and cooperating in space despite the seeming conflict. There are different approaches. Constructivist approach might also take a different approach and say, oh, all of this is just socially constructed in what we want. What is space? What is not space? And what do we see as conflict? And then there's the post-colonial approach that would say, you know what, all these things going on in space governance right now, It's just another form of colonialism in a way. They just the global south is being pressed down. Africa is being left out again. There are all these initiatives that are of disadvantage to the global south. Even what we perceive to be space governance, space is governed by treaties at the moment. There are the activities going on in outer space. There are norms. There are principles. There's the Outer Space Treaty of 1967. It set up all these wonderful norms of how we should operate in space. You can argue that some of those norms and some of those treaties were built by the global south and by, from an imperialistic mindset. Now Africa is ready to go to space and we want to do our own thing, but there's already a framework already, venturing into outer space. So you can take a post-colonial approach, you can take a feminist approach to it. So what I'm trying to say is when it comes to international politics and how you explain what is going on in space governance, it just depends on your own epistemology and your own ideas of what is going on in politics broadly. Some people can take, a market approach and be like, oh, it's just Elon Musk, it's just money. Capitalism is what is driving this sector right now. And what we don't need capital. It has already done so much damage on Earth. It's just capitalism again driving all these people you wanting to talk about mass and everything. So and this is just for politics or historians and anthropologists who take a different approach. So I just gave a full rundown of approaches to space governance. Thanks for listening to me. I'm sorry, that was an academic question, so I had to answer academically. Yeah. So,
Yeah, yeah. Don't worry. Very soon, myself will fire this PhD so that I'll start talking like you. I think it's really, I think one of the high points of your conversation about global space collaboration is the fact that it seems to be there is either a non-existent geographical boundary between one country or the other in space
no,
exploration
no,
in
no.
the world. And I feel that, I mean, if that's the case, humanity should start looking towards the heavens, or ad
Yeah,
astra, as Latin would say, because I think the earth is already filling with a lot of violence and stuff
yeah.
like that. So let's just go out there and make a
you,
lot
you're,
of
you're
peace and
absolutely right.
collaborate with each other.
You're absolutely right when you said there are no geographical boundaries, because one of the first principles in the Outer Space Treaty is known as the non-appropriation principle. In plain words, this just means nobody can own anything in outer space. You can't own a planet, you can't own the moon, you can't claim right to anything in outer space. Of course, there are exceptions to this jurisdiction rule, but space is seen as res communis humanum. It's seen as a property of everybody. It belongs to all of us. So let's see how we can coexist in space peacefully. Because when once you leave Earth and you are 100 kilometers above the Earth's surface, you will just see that there are no lines. We are just circling around like our solar system. The Earth is moving thousands and thousands of like miles an hour or something. So that is the idea that space is supposed to bring us together. But unfortunately, our terrestrial issues follow us to space a lot of the time. So that is the challenge. Yeah.
Unfortunately. I would love to ask one question before we read the questions we have in the comments. We have some good questions here in the comments. And please, if you are listening to us, um, just try to drop your questions. If you're on Facebook, you can drop the questions. I'll get to see them on this platform. If you're on YouTube, you can drop your questions. If you're on LinkedIn, you drop your questions as well. And if you're in the WhatsApp group, feel free to drop your questions there as well, and I would read through them. Now, my last question before I read this other question, my last question for this session, really, before I read the questions in the group, is looking at the fact that your personal journey, right? We are a researcher at the moment, you are an advocate, you are a leader in various organizations, you are very proud of space technology. And let me just make a confession, right? Please don't tell anybody about this confession. The confession is this: the first time that we met, I could see the fire of, like, maybe rockets flying out of your eyes. I could see you, I could see you smelling, talking, and breathing space technology. And That's the kind of energy that got me really attracted to your work in the first place. And I was like, you know what? I would love that this amazing person tells us about what actually drives your passion in
Oh,
space science. What drives your passion in space science? And in union with that, talk about, as you're reflecting on your experiences, there are a couple of people who would want to be advised as to what's the best way to even get into this space industry. So let's look
hmm.
at what you can say about that.
I feel like this question is harder than my research question. My research is not, yeah, you're just talking about some myself on that deeper level. Um, when it comes to what drives me in space, I can hardly pinpoint to a time or how it started, but a story I've convinced myself is a true story, but I don't know. Of course, we know that because of how how temporal processes you can get confused. But the story I've told often is that when I was young, there was a particular quiz question I loved, and that quiz question was or is, who was the first man to walk on the moon? Whenever I came across that question in the quiz books when we were in primary school, there are all these book of quizzes, current affairs, yeah, current affairs. Um, Whenever I came across who was the first man to walk on the moon, I just loved that question. I just love the idea of somebody going outside of Earth and to the moon. And we had all these tales by Moonlight. I grew up in a suburb where we used to have bizarre stories about the moon. And there used to be this story in Ecom that in the moon there's a woman there with a child on her back and she's tearing firewood. Honestly, I can't get that story out of my head. Anyway, so I just became very interested in that moon outside of Earth. And when I now started university, I kicked up my interest again in astronomy now, not space industry, not rockets, but astronomy. So astronomy was my first love. I loved talking about stars. I started talking about astronomy. At some point, I even did a bit of learning about astrology as well. But I found astrology to be boring at some point, so I left it. And so it became astronomy for me. And then from astronomy, I found out about space law in my second year of university, and I just told myself I want to be a space lawyer. That was it. It felt so right. It felt because I felt law was boring. I felt like law was interesting, but I was like space law is good. It's a good mix. The science, because I love science. Let me start from there. I really love science. Don't
Nice.
even get me started. I love everything about science and scientific investigation. So I felt like I like being a lawyer. It's not a bad idea, but this is a very boring profession. I'm sorry to any lawyer listening or who would listen. I'm very, very sorry. I have some of my most amazing people in my life are lawyers, so I'm sorry. So, but it just doesn't fit me. But then when I found space law, I was so happy. Well, in the past few years, there's a lot has changed since I started researching because I started researching in 2016, 17. So that's quite a long time, fairly. And I started researching space law. So a lot has changed. I've gone from space law, diplomacy. I'm now doing politics. And yeah, what drives me is just I don't know, I'm just doing what I love, which is it doesn't make it easy. It's not easy. The first time I told a professor at the University of Calabar that I wanted to go into international space law, he told me that I should think about the potholes in Calabar, like the potholes in the tadpole, and talking about space, like
Wow.
yeah, literally.
Wow.
And I was probably maybe 20 or something by then. I was young and it was so hurtful. And I haven't forgotten that statement till now, almost a decade later. So I think for me, it's just not listening to people that keep telling you what to do with your life. You don't have to be interested in space, whatever it is. Just it's hard to combine your passion sometimes and your work. I'm not doing space law at the moment. I had to change a lot of times, but I'm still very close to like the industry, to space as an industry. And I've gotten so many good mentors in 2019, I met amazing people. When I was representing Africa, everybody was like, "Oh, you're representing Africa. We are so proud of you. Oh, do this. Go here. When you want to go to Washington D.C. network." And I found the industry small. Number one, on if anybody in the space sector is listening, the person will know what I'm saying. In Africa, we are not a lot of people, so it's an industry where you can know people very very fast. So in maybe like a year or two, I knew a lot of people and people knew me. So I was like, okay, this is a place I can grow. People don't talk about space a lot. It's not a very, like I say, it's not a conversation welcome with open arms. Like, look at Africa, look at the problems we have. I I know because I work in non-profit sector. I talk about development outreach. People are really poor, things are bad, and you're talking about rockets. So it's not an industry, it's not a rosy industry. As I have to it's a lived experience for me as someone also that has that kind of like background. So I know I've spoken round and round, but my motivation is to just scientific inquiry, to do what I love. I want to know about space. To me, I feel like I don't even know anything. There's so many times I sit down, I listen to things in about maybe geodesy or mass missions, and I'm like, wow. So I still want to keep learning and I still want to keep growing. And I'm very happy. If you're here, you want to get involved in space, you're listening to the right person. Just send me a DM on LinkedIn. I'm going to add you up. I'm in several group chats with a lot of space enthusiasts across Africa, and you can, in less than 2 weeks, you can make friends that will be delulu with you on space. So yes, I'll be very happy to put you through to help you. I've mentored. I need mentorship, but I've mentored a lot of people as well when it comes to space, and I've seen them do very well and grow so much in the past few years. And I'm always willing to do that as well. So feel free to reach out to me. Thank you. Sorry, a lot. Thank you.
Awesome. 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 Thank you. Thanks for opening that door, because
Yeah.
that's something that a lot of people do when they get to the apex of their career, or maybe getting to that point, is that they do a lot of gatekeeping. They'll be like, oh,
Oh
I'm here, the only
no.
African, and let me
No.
protect this with all, let me protect this space with all my
No. No.
heart
No.
and
No.
soul and spirit. I've
Yeah.
I've never done it before,
I see.
and in fact, if you look at what we do at Dahel Techies and EKko Now, sometimes we even have free programs for people, because come to think about it, how do you empower people if there is a lot of gatekeeping, like
Yeah.
that's information. Now, it doesn't mean that everyone is going to be an astronaut or is going to
Yeah.
travel to space.
I've gotten that
What is
question so many times. How do I
yeah,
be an
what
doctor? I'm
what's
like,
going to
no.
happen? What is going to
Yeah.
happen is that the parents, the brothers, the sisters, the siblings, the uncles, the pastors, the people that you talked to or spoke to about space technology will now pass that information and enthusiasm to the next generation. So somewhere, some child somewhere will start knowing about space exploration and
Yeah.
technology, just because someone else that you
Exactly.
taught or you
Yeah.
had an
It's
exposure
like a
to.
chain. Yeah, it's a chain
Yeah,
reaction. Yes. Yes.
yeah.
That's what I believe. Sometimes I've met so many random children in like all these events, and I get to, when we spend that day with them, it's like, oh, Miss Nelly, Miss Nelly. And I always look back when I was in secondary school, some of those outreaches I had. And I still remember some of the things said to me when I was in secondary school, because in all those outreaches, and when I was in my diploma as well, as a teenager as well. I can remember some of the sessions, how people told me you can be anything you want, and all of this and that. It just sounds like inspire to aspire if you can perspire. It looks like empty motivation, but I can still remember them. Yes, I can still remember them. So I always tell myself whenever I have an opportunity with children, God, I pray that God, I hope this child remembers all these things I'm saying. I hope it inspires them one day, because we don't know who can be the next Elon Musk from Africa. You don't know what a child is going to do because of that one thing you said, and that's why I love advocacy and awareness so much. And yeah, thank you for just giving me this opportunity to also talk about space. So yeah, because we don't know who's listening and how this can inspire them as well, and it's just part of the process and the chain reaction.
Awesome. So I'm going to go through the questions one after the other. And so, Wakere is appreciating you for representing Africa.
Thank you.
And Let's see. Timothy Yoga, thank you for your comment. We appreciate it. Adeshina, thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Uh, Timothy Yoga is saying maybe space could take me to Washington DC as well. This one is not jackpot, my brother. You have to show some value for you to be invited to certain spaces. And trust me, it's something I love about some white institutions. Truly, yes, we have colonialism, post-colonialism, the challenges of in our economy and stuff like that. But trust me when I say that there are different ways that you can stand out as an
Yeah.
African
Yeah.
in white dominated spaces or in Western societies. The moment
Yeah.
you stand out, forget about the racism and it's how it happens. Even back
Yeah.
home in Nigeria, we hear ethnicism, you are Igbo, you are Yoruba, and
Yeah.
we are not all that
We are not.
different anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. That's true.
So
Actually.
when you stand out, these guys can put their best foot forward. And they, I mean, I have chopped free food in this life because I am an African and they've never seen someone from the part of the world I came from, the kind of work I do. And they'll be like, hey, David, I want to introduce you to, and some of them know how to introduce like the whole issue of gatekeeping. I don't know. I'm I'm African, right? But I really did not learn the best when it comes to sharing opportunities. I mean, you go to university, your lecturers, some professors, they are keeping their notes and their knowledge like this. They are not
Yes.
introducing you to the things that some of
Yeah.
them I don't blame them because they don't even know. They don't even know. Someone is teaching you how to code and they are writing it on the board. They don't even have access to a computer. So these are some of the challenges that we have in
Wow.
our education
Wow.
sector. So if you are right here and you are paying attention to this conversation, please don't gatekeep. If you even if you are not interested in space technology and you see a little child or a teenager or a young person who is interested and you have been connected to this conversation, please do the needful. Send them this video to watch. Tell them we are waiting for them. Tell them it's possible
Yeah.
that I have seen a space aircraft before. I didn't think I was going to see it ever in my life, but I've seen it. I've seen how massive the engines
Yeah.
look in real
Absolutely.
life. I've touched
Yes.
it. I've felt it. This thing is real, and she's right here. She's traveled. She's done all those other incredible things, and she's been a part and parcel of the success story of so many young people who are actually aware of this as well. So, Timothy, thank you for bringing that up. Oh, Mike, thank you so much again for your comments. And so there's a question from Albert. Albert says, "How can I get involved in the space industry?"
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah. Like I said, there are so many entry points. Mine was like a moot competition. It's just one thing to have a lot of head knowledge about space technologies. But there's another thing to actually work in the industry because of the few opportunities that are there, especially in Africa and Nigeria. Um, I would say first off is personal development. If you have a degree, whatever degree you have, you can try to check out how this your degree is relevant in the space industry or in the space sector or in a space organization. It doesn't matter what that degree is. I can really say space is for everyone. So you have to develop yourself personally by reading up, doing a lot of your own personal research. And then the second thing is to attend a lot of industry events, space related events, conferences. There are so many virtual events. I host a virtual event almost every month about space where people can learn about space technology and the industry as a whole in Africa. So just being in those spaces, you can get ideas and then you can also meet people. Internships are also there. Join space related organizations, like be a member of maybe a professional organization that might help. There's the Africa coordinator for SGSC, where a group of young people that is interested in contributing to the peaceful use of space. So you can join SGSC. We have different project groups, but it's not just SGSC. There are several other organizations. I think the question is quite broad. If the person gives me like maybe a specific approach, like maybe their academic background or their professional background, I'll be able to have a more definite answer for them. But generally speaking, to get in the space industry, you need to be around space people. I think that's just the easiest for me, because then you can get ideas, you can ask questions, you can know about opportunities. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that brings me to the next question here by Owedogo Etu. He says, is there a study or career like space finance?
Yeah, I wouldn't call it space finance, but understanding the space economy is a big from an academic perspective. People are really researching around the space economy, the market itself, the business part of the space industry is a big part of the industry, because we have a lot of commercial companies launching satellites and everything. And when you mean finance, finance is broad. You can work as an accountant or as a financial manager in a space organization, or sometimes when we think about careers in space, people often think it's just an astronaut, or all these big things, or a scientist, or someone that builds satellites. But it's just the everyday people doing HR work, doing accounting work, doing business management roles as well. It's just about doing all of that within the space sector, in a space organization. So yes, um I don't know if I'll call it space finance, but you can be a financial manager in a space organization. You can deal with finance within the space sector as well. So I'd say very big yes.
Okay. Can you see the next question on the screen?
Yes, you can reach me on WhatsApp. To be fair, yeah, my WhatsApp is quite crowded, but I do a lot of my work on my business WhatsApp. So I could send. I don't know if I send that message. Will every you? I could. I don't know if
Yeah,
you have my.
don't drop it here.
Yeah,
I'll
I can
probably
drop
we
in
have a
here.
group. I'm
Yeah.
gonna drop
Okay,
it
you know what?
if you
For
want.
now, the person can reach me on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is just the
Okay.
best for me because it's a more professional background. My WhatsApp is already crowded, honestly. But what I do is, if I connect with people on LinkedIn and they tell me the specific thing they want, I then know how to, maybe add them to a particular WhatsApp group, or send them to give them the number of someone that can help them. Sometimes it's not just me, it's a whole ecosystem. I have a whole network of people. As you can see, I'm a non-technical person. I'm not a space scientist. I'm here doing a
Yeah.
political research. So if you have any specific need or questions, sometimes I get people's on LinkedIn, then I connect them on WhatsApp to people that can help them in what they want to do. So yeah.
That's another question here.
Yeah, there are online courses. Some are even free. Yes, there. If you go to UNUSA, has some free courses on space economy, space law policy, use of space technology for development. There are some free courses on online. I think I'll send that to you, David. I'll send the link to where they can access some free courses. And then for
Okay.
internships as well, it really depends on your background, your professional or academic background. But there are also remote internship opportunities. Not so many, honestly. Most of them outside the continent. In Africa, it's tight. What there are opportunities for is volunteering. Even me, I have an opportunity for volunteering right now. We always want people to volunteer. It's crazy. So there are opportunities for volunteering, but internship, yeah, but depends on your background. You can probably intern in NAS, the Nigeria Space Agency, in NICOMSAT. You can do people do NYSC there and things like that. I did my NYSC in DSA, so the Defense Space Administration of Nigeria. So it really depends on your academic background as well. That's where we determine the kind of internship or work experience you can just leverage on at the moment. But for the free courses, I'll definitely send that to David.
All right. I have just three questions. I'm gonna just go through them briefly because we're an hour um, an hour into the session. I would love to know, like, in terms of your role models. Okay, just talk to me about it. I mean, you've been in the whole space sector since your master's program. You've traveled. You've been in the UK. You are still in the UK, and you've engaged with a lot of people. Whom do you consider to be your role models? And with
Mm.
this, you probably just tell us a little bit about how you feel being described as a woman in tech in that sense.
Am I a woman in tech? I love, as you say, I love to think I'm one of the I like to identify as a women in science or women in space and all of that. But sometimes I'm like, am I? Well, maybe I am. Thank you. Um, for mentors, that's I don't know why that's or role models. So why that's suddenly a hard question. um, because sometimes someone you can look up to someone but not exactly it's not about career, it's very, but let me just focus on like the career aspect. For my role models, or I wouldn't call role models, I'll say people that have mentored me, right? So I was a team of Young. He's the founder of the African Space Leadership Institute. He's been very, very important in several junctions of my career so far. He's been willing to hear me out and give me advice. We have also the current president of the Land Space Foundation, Dr. Anna Gee. She's been very supportive. She used to be my lecturer in university, and she's been very, very supportive as well. Neshuvimbo Samanga, she's my friend. She is one of Zimbabwe's leading space expert, actually, and she has inspired me in a lot of ways. She's more like a colleague and a friend as well. Yeah, just I could go Oren in there's Kwekusuma, Space Ops Africa, where I host my monthly webinar series. I've known him for quite a while now, and he's been very supportive to my career as well, and encouraged me, and help me through maybe trying to get across an idea or do a certain project and things like that. He's been very supportive of my career as well. So I wouldn't have gotten anywhere where I am in the space sector without these people in terms of my career. But then I come back to my family, and in terms of my parents, they've been amazing. Once I had this interview where I was asked if I would go to space, what is one thing I would take with me if I can't go to space? And I said it would be a picture of my dad and my mom. And that's because when I started talking about space and not wanting to practice law, it was in like, just think about it, like they were like, what are the prospects, it's very like random, like which one is space law again, Nelly, which one is space law? They could not understand. When I started, I can be very obsessive about things. All I talked about and all I was doing and talking about in 2017 was space, space, space. And how you could just look at that child and be like, you know what, whatever you want to do, support your dream, just go on with it. It wasn't not all parents do that. Not all parents do that. At first they were very antagonistic. They were like, you, why you always going for conference, going for events? Sit down one place now. What is it? Is it only you in that unical? So, but at some point they became very supportive. My parents became so supportive, and my family, everybody knows about space because they listen to me. They can't even escape it. So I just want to give a shout out to my family for accommodating me, honestly. Accommodating me and supporting me. Yeah, I couldn't have gotten anywhere if they all didn't think I had something in me to succeed. So I think just bringing in that personal side of the story is very important here. Having people that would actually support you. Yeah, so from my family and my very lovely friends as well. Yeah.
Thank you very much. And I think, do you have any advice for anyone who wants to pursue a career in space tech or astronautics?
Yeah.
And yeah, let's just leave. I'm really looking forward to that and talk about, maybe re-emphasize the opportunities. I know you've mentioned it, but
We are.
I
Yeah.
need you to re-emphasize it, the opportunities in the space technology and industry,
Yeah.
as you are giving out this
Yeah.
advice. Then I'll give one last question.
Yeah, so space is the future. Honestly, that's what I would say. If you're interested in space, space is the future. It's the industry is not as advanced as it is in outside the continent, but the continent is picking up. Africa has a huge political interest in space. We have an African space outer space strategy. We have an African outer space policy. We have an African outer space program, and though it's still in its nascent stage, who knows what the next 25, 20 years would hold. This is the stage where if you want to be part of something bigger than yourself, I know it sounds very idealistic, but yeah, if you want to be part of something bigger than yourself, this is the time to really get on board. And there are lots of opportunities, but it's not an easy sector. It's a highly technical field. As a non-policy, non-technical person coming into this field, you probably have to learn a lot. And as a technical person, if you don't have the you might have the technical skills, but then you're not familiar with the industry, so you have to still learn a lot about the industry. Because sometimes it look like, oh, it's space technology, but it's not about rocket science or people going to outer space at all. It's the everyday things. It's like you mentioned, coding softwares and codes, and all of these are used in data processing, for earth observation data, for example. It's the everyday things that people actually do, like lawyers that work in space. They look at words, they look at treaties. It's just about working in that particular niche, right? And what is challenging there is being able to say, I will do this, because you have to start learning a lot of new things, meeting people. So it can be a very frustrating industry. People start, people leave, people just, sometimes people flex in and out between telecommunications and space, or between space and aviation and all of that. It's a complex field, but at the end of the day, I think the last thing is, people that work in space, you meet a lot of passionate people, at least at the global level, people that are very interested in their work. So it's an interesting place, an interesting bubble. We are always at the front edge. Like the whole was talking about Elon Musk now and Mars, for example. We are always at the edge of technology, because space is pushing the boundaries of what we know as human limits. So yeah, it's just this inspiring sector to work in generally. But you have to think about money as well. Like even me, I think about money. Which area of space to give me the most money? Yeah. So thank you. Thanks for listening to me.
Okay. Um, Thank you very much. I
Thank
do
you.
have one last question, so we can close the.
You've had three last questions, but it's fine.
Okay, wait a minute. Give me a sec. Trying to check questions in the WhatsApp group. Let me see
Oh,
if
yeah, oh, that's okay.
go through them. Okay, I think we've responded to most of these questions
Yeah,
in the group.
great. Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
this is the final question,
That's
and
okay.
let's look at the opportunities in terms of collaboration between the space technology professionals in Africa and those in the diaspora. I know that when you were making your presentation, you mentioned a couple of challenges that are facing the African continent: food insecurity, climate change. Um, there's a whole lot of issues around our internet. How
Yeah.
fast is it? How slow is the speed and stuff like that? Most persons, when they hear about space, it's about like rockets. But I'm
Yeah,
happy that in
yeah,
your
that's
opening remarks
complex.
you
Yeah.
mentioned, yeah, you mentioned every other sector that is incorporated into the industry. So just hit it on the nail. Let's know what openings are there for collaboration between space professionals in the African continent, looking at the challenges we have, and of course those in the diaspora.
Honestly, that's a very interesting question, because when it comes to African professionals in diaspora working in space and those in the continent, there's no formal link of collaboration, and To be honest, it's not something I've ever thought about. I just know that there are people working, you know, in diaspora in some space agencies, and people have maybe dual citizenship. Some people are working in space companies and things like that. And then we have people on the continent as well. And have this really no formal dialogue. We few people know each other. We meet at events, but I don't know if at the business level, I'm sure people do B2B meetings sometimes. I'm sure people have for academia, I'm sure people will write papers together sometimes. I still work a lot in Africa, although I'm here in the UK. I still do a lot of projects with people in Africa. We maybe joint programs together, but it's at very personal level. Maybe the people you know. Maybe I know this person in
Mm,
Nigeria, or I know this person in Kenya, and we work on this. But there's no maybe formal or structure of engaging Africa in diaspora and Africans in Africa that are space professionals. And I think this is like a very key gap that you just discussed. And I've heard one of my senior colleague, Abraham, oh, is another person I really look up to. And Abraham Akila Wahabali has discussed this kind of like forum or fora where we can have more diaspora and Africans, collaborating in terms of space. But and you just identified it again. So I think what you just identified is a problem because I don't even have an answer
mm,
to it. It's very random. It's one of just maybe people personal projects or business projects, but there's no formal room of collaboration. It's there, but it's about who do you know. For example, I know you now and you know me. We can work on something. I can connect you to someone I know and things like that. But if we don't know each other and there's actually no way for us to identify who is in diaspora, who is in Africa, there's nothing like that. Maybe I should host a dialogue on
uh,
diaspora Arabia. Maybe now that I think about it, it's actually a brilliant idea, honestly. And yeah, probably.
um, I'm happy you are trying to write down something, and
Yeah,
thanks
I don't
for
want to.
making it
Yeah,
up to this point in this particular. Yeah, I would love to. Again, there are two things I would ask of you. First is that you try to see how you can take the EKko Now family along when you are implementing
absolutely.
projects, especially in Nigeria, so we could participate and see how we can
Yeah, yeah.
our best
There,
um,
there are
our
a lot of
best support.
competitions.
And then, yeah,
Yeah, there are competitions.
um,
That you can
all-
always sign up for and things like that. Yeah.
yeah. So again, let's also look at opportunities where you share your webinar topics with us, so we can also participate in those conversations. When I saw the one you organized and the conversations that were going on, especially by East Africans and the whole South Africa, Nigeria, and
Yeah. Oh,
Eastern or
yeah. Oh, that
Western,
was a
sorry.
very high tense
Yeah,
webinar.
yeah.
Honestly, it was some webinars are way calmer than
So
that. That was about politics, so it was tense.
it would be nice to have access to those kind of conversations as well.
Yeah.
So those are two things I'm asking of you, and hopefully there are others that will have conversations about. Maybe you end this conversation by just a sentence or two. One last thing to those who listened to you today. What is the thing you want them to go home with?
Yeah. Oh, thank you. First off, I'd like to say a big thank you for this wonderful conversation for the past 1 hour, 18 minutes, just talking about space, talking about my work, academic, industry, just different backgrounds. So thank you so much for having me here today. I'm very, very happy to be here. Thank you so much. And what I also want to say as parting words is that what we usually say space is for everyone, space is for all. It seems like a very elitist, high level tech industry, but when you work in the space sector, you see that it's just very everyday, normal people. It's not just about astronauts and rockets like the way it's been framed in the media, but with your skills, whatever skills you have, you can also contribute in this sector. So yes, and always feel free to inspire other people, even if you're not interested in space. That's okay, but always look at the space industry and feel inspired by what is there, and don't doubt yourself. Have faith and confidence in what you can do and what God has put in you that you are able to do. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. And to be honest, I'm so okay. Wait a minute. Need to um give me a sec.
Yes. Okay.
I need to come back to the screen.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So
it's okay.
thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it. I don't take it for
Yeah, me too.
granted, and
Yeah.
you've really been patient to explain this. And it's a conversation I was personally looking forward to.
Yeah,
And
I noticed it was a good one.
the good thing about this platform is that we're going to replay it as often as we can, so that a lot of people know about it. And anytime we
Yeah,
hear anyone asking questions about space technology, we are just going to send them this link, send
yeah.
them connection to your platform. And so, thank you very much. We're going to continue the conversation shortly on WhatsApp, or maybe I just have to rush back to my class
No problem.
and
Yeah,
tell
you
my
told me
lecturer
you had a class. Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, no
I,
problem. So we
I
can
have
have
to rush to
this
class
session.
and
No
see that, and
problem.
then we'll continue the conversation. But
Yeah.
let's something I want for our viewers. There's something I want to share my screen and play video while we exit. So thank you very much for all of you that
Thank you.
attended
Yeah.
the
Thank
event. It's
you.
been such a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So, Timothy, thank you very much. I see your comments. It's a very interesting video I want to show you guys. Let's see. so much. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.